The Whole of the Moon has been sung by dozens and dozens of artists, and she brought an emotive edge to it that no one else ever had. So when I had this little song, Letter from an Unknown Girlfriend, for the Dennis Hopper record, I thought she would be the right voice because she could bring that sense of emotional pain to it. A lot of my favorite characters in rock and roll and popular culture are the Mavericks like Hopper or Leon Russell and Chuck Berry. And here were all these fabulous recordings that I'd completely forgotten. In fact, there are some that I don't even remember playing, but it's me on the tape, so I must have done. I always bring a mattress topper. If I find myself in a hotel with a hard bed, the whole
Hello and welcome to this week's Mixtape. I'm your host, Mark, and today on the show it is an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be chatting to Mike Scott. How are you, Mike?
I'm fine, Mark, thank you. Is it evening where you are?
Is 4:20, just coming up 4 in the afternoon, yeah, so
Oh,
we're 7 hours ahead in Perth. And so you're starting your Australian tour, mate, in Perth. Excited to be back in Australia, Mike?
yes, of course. I'm very glad to be starting in Perth. You know, I've got an old school friend in Perth.
Oh, true.
What the leader of our gang at school back in the 1970s, a chap called Frank Surgeoner. This was in Ayr in Scotland, and he lives in Perth. So apart from looking forward to playing the gig and seeing the Aussie audience again, I'm looking forward to seeing Frank.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Perth's got a huge expat community, obviously, which, as you can probably tell from the accent, I am one of, proud to be one of those. When you're on tour, Mike, especially somewhere like Australia, what does the sort of a typical day look like for you? Are you more of a sort of a sound check and back to the hotel guy? Or do you like to get out and about and see some sights wherever you are?
I don't go out and about. All my energy is focused on the 2.5 hours on stage.
Yeah.
So I don't expend any energy during the day that I don't have to because I'm maximizing it. So that means I'm not going out to cathedrals. I'm not walking around with tourists in museums. I don't go into shopping malls. Nothing that's going to use up my energy. I might go for a run in the morning. That's the only thing.
I'll say. Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. I'm really looking forward to the shows myself. Set list wise, Mike, what can we expect from the shows? Obviously, you're going to be playing the hits, and then there's going to be a few tracks from the latest album, Life and Death of Dennis Hopper.
We'll be playing a lot of familiar songs that the audience might be expecting or hoping or dreading to hear. But we'll also be playing a big chunk from the new record, which is called Life, Death, and Dennis Hopper. It's the life story of the American actor told in songs.
Yeah. And what was it? I was interested to know, like, what was it about Dennis Hopper that inspired you to immortalise him on the record in that way?
Well, he was a maverick, and I'm drawn to maverick characters. A lot of my favorite characters in rock and roll and popular culture are the mavericks, like Hopper or Leon Russell and Chuck Berry and or Jerry Lee Lewis. That's another one. I don't think I would like Jerry Lee Lewis. I don't think I'd want to go on holiday with him, but man, he's a fascinating character. And same with Hopper. Now, I might go on holiday with Hopper if he was still around, but he was such an amazing the twists and turns that he took in his on his road of life were very fascinating. And you know, he wasn't just an actor, he was a brilliant photographer. And he had this Zelig-like ability to be present at moments in cultural history. I don't know if you know, but he was in Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean, which many people consider the big bang of youth culture. And
Yeah.
then he was present at the beginning of pop art. He was an early champion of Andy Warhol before anyone had heard of Andy. And if you follow his life through, he's at many of these cultural moments as a participator or what now would be called an influencer.
I think, Easy Rider was, I think, where he first sort of popped on my sort of,
Yeah,
radar.
mine too. Yeah,
And there's some really stellar guests on the album, Mike.
yeah.
Were those people that you'd always wanted to work with, or and you reached out, or did they reach out to you? How did those conversations happen, and how did they appear on
Well,
the album?
yeah. A friend of mine listened to the album at an early stage, and he said, "You know, you're doing too many different voices." Because I was doing all these little putting on other people's voices. I was a newsreader on one track. I was an aged hippie on another, and so depending on what the story required. And he said you should get some other people, get some guests on the album. And at first I didn't like the idea, but I turned it over in my mind, and 24 hours later I thought, no, he's completely right. So the first thing I did was I identified a voiceover on a track called 10 Years Gone that I'd done myself, and it was all right the way I did it, but I thought, "Hmm, someone else could do that even better," and I knew who, Bruce Springsteen. Because I don't know if, like me, you used to listen to Bruce Springsteen bootlegs of his concerts, but he used to do these wonderful voiceovers. It's stories that he would tell. You know, the E Street Band would have a little slick groove going behind him,
Mm.
and Bruce would tell his wonderful story of how he met Clarence Clemens, or about the beautiful girl that used to walk down their road every day. And he had a dramatic delivery that was really masterful. So I thought if we could get Bruce to do that on this track, even though it's just a short little 30-second voiceover, we could get that voice. And we did. He agreed to do it. And he did a beautiful
Amazing.
job.
Have you seen his I think it was on Netflix, his Broadway show where he's just sitting there with a piano and guitar, and he's doing that. He's just telling stories, telling his life story, where he grew up. It shows through in his songwriting as well because he's an amazing raconteur.
Yes.
In general, in telling stories. So and his songs obviously reflect that as well, you know, through the years.
Yeah.
There's some amazing stories. And Fiona Apple as well, Mike. Were you aware of her before this record?
Yes, I was, and also I knew her own music, and also she covered a Waterboy song, "The Whole of the Moon," for
Yeah.
television program about 5 or 6 years ago, and she did it particularly powerfully. She wonderfully emotive vocal that, you know, "The Whole of the Moon" has been sung by dozens and dozens of artists. In fact, it's just been covered by Lewis Capaldi here in Europe, and she brought an emotive edge to it that no one else ever had. So when I had this little song, "Letter from an Unknown Girlfriend," for the Dennis Hopper record, I thought she would be the right voice because she could bring that sense of emotional pain to it, and she did.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you sort of new records as well, talking about new records, you just announced this week, I think, the first single's come out from Atlantic Rain. The single is called Too Close to Heaven, and that's just come out this week. I've been listening to it a bit this week. Fantastic single. The subtitle of the album is I think it's kind of the Fisherman's Blues Lost Songs or something along those
The
sorts of
Lost
lines.
Fisherman's Blues recordings, yes.
That's it, yeah, sorry, I didn't write it
Yeah.
down, but I knew it was something along those lines. How did you come across those, recordings after all this time?
Well, you may know that the Fisherman Blues period, the recordings for that album lasted on and off for 3 years, and we used to record live in the studio. We weren't doing it by overdubs. It wasn't that slow, painstaking process. It was fast and immediate, and we used to sit in a circle in the studio and play for real with me singing live vocals. And that meant that the volume of material we had was huge. We had hundreds of recordings, and we actually used 400 different multi-track reels during that period. And it's a lot of music to keep track of. And inevitably, even though I thought I'd heard it all, there was stuff that I'd forgotten that I'd never even listened to. And in fact, there were many dozen reels that didn't have any song titles on them that just said jam or instrumental or
Mm.
sound check. And they were all sitting there in the archives, and the bloke from the record company that owns the copyright said, "Look, why don't we listen to these reels that have got no song titles on them?" And I thought, "Ah, there'll be nothing on them. No, no, no." But he got them transferred, and we listened to them, and here were all these fabulous recordings that I'd completely forgotten. In fact, there are some that I don't even remember playing, but it's me on the tape, so I must have done.
Yeah. I was looking through the track list. Obviously, the only single that's just come out, this week is just the one, but I was looking through the track list, and I was so intrigued with a couple of the cover versions of When Doves Cry, I think was one of them, and Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band as well is on that track list.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's heaps to get excited about. Is it a triple CD or triple vinyl you're putting out, Mike? There's lots of tracks on there.
Triple vinyl and triple CD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic, and
And
that's out
5 tracks. Yeah.
yeah, July the 17th, that's coming out.
Yes.
So yeah, everyone can get excited about that in advance. At the start of the show, Mike, when I said what a privilege and a pleasure it is to chat to you, it wasn't like me being overexcitable presenter. Genuinely, it's a real thrill because This Is the Sea is my favourite song of all time. So
Oh,
it is an
great.
absolute buzz for me to get here
Yeah.
and chat to you. And so I wanted to ask you specifically about that track, but just a couple of things. First of all, what was your songwriting sort of inspiration for that song?
We played a show in Manchester, in 1984. It was a little venue called the Gallery. And I always remember that gig because it was the first really great Waterboys show. It was maybe our 30th show, right back at the beginning with the original lineup of the band. It was the first one where we had a really transcendent concert between band and audience. And on the dressing room wall, someone had written a piece of graffiti that said, "That was the river, this is the whole sea." And I thought, "Oh, that's a beautiful line." And in fact, that's how it feels. It feels like all the gigs leading up to this were the river, but tonight we saw what was possible. It's the whole sea. And the phrase stayed in my mind, and it eventually turned into a song. And the idea was that it was someone who was at a crossroads in their life and realizing that if they stepped forward, they were into a new circumstance or a new reality.
Yeah. That's exactly what it means to me and what it represents, and it's I think to me, it's one of those songs that obviously I knew and loved for many years because it's
Mm.
been out there in the world for quite some time, but only in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, like, I've been through a lot of things and a lot of life changes and, I wouldn't say reinvented myself, but I've really sort of discovered how restrained and restricted I'd been in life and just started saying yes to opportunities and doing different things and being around different people. And I heard the song again after a
Mm.
long period, after having been through that sort of process, and it just hit me a million times harder, just like, after when I heard it
Yeah.
the second time, and such a great song, and I feel like sort of my first, you know, the last 20 years was the river, and now me doing
Yeah.
this and doing this show and presenting this and getting to talk to you about it, like, that is the sea, and the person I'm with now, she doesn't know this, and I call her my train. She's my train. Like, you know what I mean? She's mine if I hurry, you've still got enough time. Like, it's just that kind of like,
Well done,
it
man.
it's one of those songs that just every line, I think the way you've written it, and I think it's the key to songwriting is when you write a song lyrically that means something to you, but it's got that appeal where people like me can listen to it and go, "That
Yeah.
feels like you've lifted up the top of my head and looked inside and written it down." It's such a great thing, of songwriting and the beauty and power of music. Yeah, for sure. Mike, I've
Yeah,
got
all right, man. Really
no, no
appreciate it.
problem, mate. Thank you for writing the song in the first place. Yeah, he's amazing. All right, I've got a few generic tour related questions that I asked everybody who's coming to Perth. So I'll throw them at you now.
Yeah.
The first one, Mike, is do you have a pre-show ritual?
Not really, no. No, I suppose I've got things I always do, but there's not a ritual. We don't hold hands in a circle and invoke the gods of performance or anything like that. Although I have done that. I've done that in the dim past, but we don't do any of that now. The nearest thing to a ritual is I kind of look at the band before we go on and say, "Well, good luck, everybody," or someone else says it, and then we go on and play, and everything happens.
What's on your tour rider these days? Anything weird or interesting?
Very boring, I'm afraid. I have my own dressing room, and the band
Okay.
has another. This is a system that began when we did our appointment with Mr. Yeats shows in Dublin many years ago, when we had 2 or 3 ladies in the ensemble. So and we were playing in a real theatre. It was the Abbey Theatre in Dublin, and there were several dressing rooms. So we divvied it up so that there was the men's dressing room, the ladies' dressing room, and then the Mike Scott dressing room. I don't know what that says about me, but anyway, and ever since then I've always had my own dressing room. It really works for me. And I think it works for the band as well because being the band leader, when I'm in the room, there's an extra pressure on everybody. Not that I'm turning into Adolf Hitler and telling them to do things. This is quite the opposite. I'm very relaxed with the guys, but even so, I think it's good for them to have space without me before a show. Even though we pop into each other's rooms and it's very organic, but even so, and it really works for me. I have my own space. I can have a little nap if I need one after the sound check and so on. And I've said so much that I've completely forgotten what the question was.
Anything weird or interesting on your tour rider?
On the rider, yes.
Yeah.
So you see, I have my own dressing room rider, and
Yeah.
I don't drink, so it's sparkling water at room temperature, various fruit juices, soya milk, and an espresso machine.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. These are the sort of things that fans like me, like those little nuggets,
Yeah,
like we love to know,
yeah.
like those little things for sure. Is there one sort of essential item or piece of equipment that you always bring on tour with you, like from home?
I always bring a mattress topper. Do you know what those are?
I do, I've got one myself, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good for the back.
If I find myself in a hotel with a hard bed, I'll wake up the next day, I'll have terribly sore knees, I won't have slept well, I'm not a 22-year-old anymore, my body likes its comforts, and I've all these aches and pains that will come up if I've got a sore bed if I've got a hard bed, so the topper is my kind of proof against that.
What is your favourite city to play live, Mike?
Oh, God, there are a number. Valencia is one of them in Spain. Glasgow.
Glasgow comes up a lot in that category. A lot of people say Glasgow, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Glasgow, what an audience, and also it's got one of the greatest rock and roll venues in the Barrowland Ballroom.
yeah.
I
That's
like
the
playing
one.
Dublin. Dublin is our home gig because I've
Yep.
lived here for many years,
Mm,
some of the band are from Dublin. I like, San Francisco, Minneapolis, Washington, DC, they're always Toronto, always good North American shows.
mhm,
Now in Australia, I remember really great gigs in Melbourne particularly.
mhm.
And I remember a great gig in Perth in 2015, and I think we might have played This Is the Sea for the first time in many years at that show. Yeah. Oddly
Yeah,
enough.
fantastic, fantastic. And finally, in this little category, if you could go to any concert in history, time travel to any concert in history, which concert would you choose?
I'd be up on the rooftop with the Beatles on January 30, 1969.
That's another one that comes up a lot as well. I love that, that documentary on Disney is amazing, and so many good insights into that, into the circumstances around that, and I love, like, the sort of they're sending down, like, PAs and people from the record
Yeah,
company to, like, stall the police at the front door and everything. It's so good, like, it's brilliant
yeah.
insight. Yeah, fantastic. You a big Beatles fan, Mike? Obviously with the
Yeah,
Sergeant Pepper's on
all my
the
life.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. I think we'll wrap it up there. It's been an absolute pleasure, chatting to you, Mike. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Real thrill
You're
for me
welcome.
personally as well. Safe travels down under, and we'll see you again. Thank you,
Nice
mate.
talking to you,
Cheers,
man.
buddy.
Bye.
You, mate. Take care. Bye bye.